regard to repairing eroding bluffs. Is that
Well, I
correct?
believe you have the Coastal Act, you have the Coastal Plan that talks about the only opportunity for retaining walls on bluff is to protect existing development. So if there are houses to the north, they could apply for a coastal development permit. We would then look at that application to see if it was the most environmentally protective measure to achieve protection of that structure while also providing environmental protections. That decision could be, however, appealed to the Coastal Commission because it is in an appealable area.
And the Coastal Commission has looked generally unfavorably on such appeals, hasn't it?
I don't know that I could say that I followed their track record close enough to know if they would approve or deny. I think it depends on the individual circumstance and what options, what's the improvement that's being protected, and what other alternatives, are there for protection of that structure.
Okay, and just one more question, and that is the Community Action Plan removes a number of parking spaces. There's been a lot of talk about making this being necessary in the town and so on and so forth, but this should not be, in your opinion, part of this discussion?
That was not part of my decision in that, and that there was talk of parking issues in the town of Gualala. It was not a factor in my approval of this project. I'd look towards the people of Gualala would have a much better idea of the parking situation in Gualala than I.
And the other point here I just, with regard to runoff control, or the beneficial aspect of this project, I think it was mentioned that it will prevent erosion control and runoff. This is the primary justification for this project.
Well, just to correct you, it won't prevent erosion control. It will establish erosion control.
It's been a long day, couple of days. Yeah, okay, so it will, but that is a major, if not the
Absolutely.
major fact
Yes.
before this. Thank you.
Other board comments, questions? Supervisor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Hall, a couple questions. I think that you definitely commented and discussed this concept of piecemealing, which was raised by the appellants. I've got two other questions of concern. It's been raised that there could be some violations of the local coastal plan, specifically the Gualala Special Neighborhood Protection. Do you have any concerns, or can you elaborate on what violations might exist? Do you see any?
Well, the staff report addressed issue consistency with the coastal plan and found it consistent with that coastal plan. I think Teresa's response back to the Coastal Commission also addresses that particular issue. The response dated February 25th. So I can answer that question in general. I don't remember looking at any particular specific policy in the recent past about neighborhood character.
Well, just to respond to the comments that were made today here verbally, do you have any responses to those? There are specific, the applicant could, or the appellant could give you the specific sections, but there was reference to specific sections. Would you be able to comment on those?
Well,
I don't know what
I
they
only
are
could
either.
in a very general sense. I'd look to Teresa if you have specifics. I'd also look to the botanist that did respond in the RAU submittal to you. There is the letter from the botanist that did point out the protocols that were used and why, in their opinion, and I believe also in Teresa's opinion, they are in concert with and consistent with Coastal Act and LUP policies.
I'm just concerned with where this might go on some type of an appeal or future action. So I just wanted you to comment on that. To another question that was also raised that I have concerns about, that there are less impactful alternatives that have not been explored. Can you comment on that and the need for the applicant to actually adhere to such a standard or something similar to that? That you need to look for the option that is the least impactful.
Well, I think you do have to look at that. You also have to weigh that with, where this is located, what the classification is for this property in a mixed village classification where you're going to see urban improvements, you're going to see dense urban development, that's encouraged in the plan to protect other areas in Gualola. I think the letter from Alan Block did a good job of addressing that particular issue as well.
And in terms of if this should be approved today, where do you see this might go in your crystal ball in terms of with this?
I'm not even sure I need a crystal ball for that one. It's gonna
With,
be in front of the Coastal Commission on appeal.
But with this dual jurisdiction that you talked about, could you elaborate on that a little more? Because I found that very interesting with these two parcels side by side.
Well, the Coastal Commission has original jurisdiction, for the the failed retaining wall. So they
Right.
have jurisdiction on that. They would have jurisdiction of this project if this project is approved by the board and then appealed. If it is denied, it would not go before the Coastal Commission because they would not have there would be no ability to appeal a denial.
Thank you.
Supervisor Pinches.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just, I don't know. I feel property rights go from coast to coast and not a setback or anything. And I think our Constitution sets forth the ability for a private property owner to protect his or her private property. And I think this plan, I sit here and looking at all the work and time and effort and money that's been spent in this plan and the applicant to come up with something that appeases the plants people and all the other issues. I think it's really overwhelming. My home sits above where the North Coast Rail Authority has tried to run a railroad track along the Eel River, and when they were operating, they do whatever it was necessary to protect the erosion from taking away their right-of-way to run a railroad train. And I compare what I see that happened in the Eel River Canyon and look at the attempt to appease all the environmental issues on this, and it's kind of mind-boggling to me. But I think, first of all, Ray, I think you and your staff never made this decision just on a whim. You put a lot of effort and interest in this, and I think you made the right decision in the first place, and I'm going to uphold that decision.
Supervisor Delaware.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of questions. Looking at the conditions, and this is the condition number 3, I think it's the special conditions. Noise-generating construction activities shall be limited in duration to between the hours of 8 and 5, Monday through Friday. Can you show me an example of a non-noise-generating construction activity?
I think that's just to clarify and emphasize that it does create noise, and that's to occur between 8 and 5.
So any construction activities between 8 and 5?
I believe that's the intent.
Okay. I would, personally, I understand the intent, but some other language in there that allows a lower level of noise that construction activities can continue, because that's, given the history around this project, that's an open door for someone to raise issues, as broad as that condition is.
Can I just say one thing, which is that condition was put in here by the request of the applicant because of their concerns for their neighbors.
Okay. No, that's fine. Something along the lines of excessive noise or some qualifier there would be my preference. Mr. Rao handed out a list of 7 recommended findings. You reiterated some of those verbally, Mr. Hall. Is it staff's position that those 7 issues are documented sufficiently in the staff report?
Last